Meghan Markle is the most bullied person in the world, at least according to Meghan Markle. It's a story she's been wanting to sell the public since 2019, starting with her now infamous interview with Tom Bradby, where she talked about how she had suffered at the hands of the British press.
When I first met my now husband, my friends were really happy because I was so happy, but my British friends said to me, "I'm sure he's great, but you shouldn't do it because the British tabloids will destroy your life."
Prince Harry too shared his fears during the documentary he made with Oprah in 2021, The Me You Can't See.
My mother was chased to her death while she was in a relationship with someone that wasn't white. And now look what's happened. You want to talk about history repeating itself? They're not going to stop until she dies.
Meghan also gave a detailed version of the tale during the Oprah interview.
I just didn't see a solution. I would sit up at night and I was just like, I don't understand how all of this is being churned out. And again, I wasn't seeing it, but it's almost worse when you feel it through the expression of my mom or my friends or them calling me crying, just like, Meg, they're not protecting you.
And again, during their documentary.
And that I wasn't just being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves.
And many times since. Meghan Markle almost can't help talking about suffering from bullying for one reason. People aren't buying the story, but she desperately needs them to. So is it true? Was Meghan Markle bullied by the British press? Did they hate her for her mixed race and unusual background? Did they give preferential treatment to her sister-in-law? And did the royal family toss Meghan to the wolves for the sake of their own reputations? Going back to that 2019 interview, which Meghan provided at the end of the South Africa tour, people had doubts right from the start because of what she said.
But my British friends said to me, "I'm sure he's great, but you shouldn't do it because the British tabloids will destroy your life." And I very naively, I'm American, we don't have that there. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it doesn't make sense. We here in America don't have tabloids. In fact, one could argue that American tabloids are far worse when it comes to invading privacy of public figures. Just recently, TMZ has been under fire for posting inappropriate photos of Liam Payne after his death. And Meghan, being an actress who would know all about the extent of tabloid culture in America, especially in Los Angeles, which brings me to the next point. If they were motivated to leave the royal family and the royal fishbowl because of the invasion of privacy by the British press, how did it make sense to move to California, the main hub of the paparazzi? During the documentary, The Me You Can't See, the entire pitch, aside from Prince Harry complaining about his family, was to draw strong parallels between Meghan and Diana.
I then had a son who I'd far rather be solely focused on, rather than every time I look in his eyes, wondering whether my wife is going to end up like my mother and I'm going to have to look after him myself.
But again, this didn't make sense. While Diana really was hounded by the press, Meghan never received the same attention or intrusion. Instead, Meghan Markle's attention from the press was extremely pleasant. But the pair made their strongest argument for their victim statuses during their Netflix documentary, where they told their love story for the first time.
We weren't allowed to tell our story because they didn't want.
We've never been nice last time.
That's true.
How did you first meet?
They tell their story.
We've never been nice last time.
That's true.
But also shared the difficulties they faced as a multiracial couple right from the beginning.
At that point, I was still very much believing what I was being told. But truth be told, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, no matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me.
Okay, so let's look at the headlines from that time. But first, have you heard that flavored air is quickly becoming a leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's all about creating better habits without all the fuss. That's where Fume comes in, our sponsor for today's video. Fume is a nicotine-free, non-toxic way to satisfy those bad habit cravings we all have. There's no vapor, no batteries, and nothing to charge. You simply draw through it and enjoy flavors like cinnamon hearts and black licorice, or my favorite, spearmint. It's It's designed to help fill that hand-to-mouth urge while offering a natural, guilt-free experience. But it's not just about flavor. Fume has a sleek, high-quality design and even some features to fidget with, which helps with anxiety and keeping those hands busy. And for the holiday season, it's an awesome, thoughtful gift idea for anyone looking to ditch a bad habit. So head over to tryfume.com/baggageclaim and use my code BAGGAGECLAIM to get a free Fume topper when you order a Journey pack. You might even win one of their limited edition gold-plated devices. Again, that's tryfume.com/baggageclaim or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you for listening, and now back to the video. In 2016, when Prince Harry had announced his relationship with Meghan Markle, here were the sort of headlines that Meghan received from the British press. The Sun: Meghan Markle's family shared childhood photos of Prince Harry's girlfriend and say she would make the ideal aunt for George and Charlotte. The Daily Mail: how Prince Harry's girl is changing lives of African children, just like Princess Diana. The Sun: Prince Harry and Meg are remarkable, and her divorce does not matter if they're happy. The Mirror: Meghan Markle is hailed as the new Princess Diana after first official engagement with Prince Harry. The Sun: Princess Bride: Prince Harry's girlfriend Meghan Markle looks stunning in a white wedding dress in throwback to an episode of Suits. The Daily Mail: women of color celebrate Black Princess Meghan Markle and liken the royal engagement to Obama's election. From the headlines, and there are plenty more, you can see that the British press loved Meghan and gave her plenty of positive press right off the bat, and even celebrated her background. Now, I'm not saying there weren't instances of racism. There were, but I don't believe that a few instances should be used to taint the hundreds and hundreds of positive stories. There will always be racist people in the world, people who send death threats or harass people, and Meghan Markle is not unique in being a target. Everyone who's in the public sphere gets targeted in some way or the other. Even I, with my small YouTube channel, receive plenty of death threats and racist messages. But is it reasonable for me to say my entire audience is racist? Of course not. The truth is that the British media were excited about Meghan Markle, and it showed in their fawning headlines. And the people of the United Kingdom agreed, with hundreds of thousands of people showing up to greet them and participate in their love story.
She broke royal protocol, even though she and Harry are not yet married.
And then on top of that, with the press, there's a lot of invented protocols.
It was baptism by fire.
What Meghan and Harry fail to elaborate on is that there are plenty of royal protocols that Meghan consistently broke, like when she didn't wear a hat to a daytime event with Her Majesty the Queen, something that every other female royal does. But when the Mirror reported on the engagement, they did so without criticizing Meghan. Instead, they focused on how well the Queen and Meghan seemed to be getting on, saying Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and the Queen appeared to be getting on famously as they attended their first royal engagement together in Chester. The duo were seen smiling and laughing as they opened the new bridge, a month after Meghan officially joined the family. There were so many instances of the press praising Meghan's outfits, and when she wore an off-the-shoulder dress to Trooping the Colour, which does break protocol since off-shoulder dresses were only to be worn to evening events, the Sun justified her decision, saying, "Who can blame her?" The article went on to say Meghan looked every inch of the modern-day princess. Another royal protocol forbids members from wearing black unless specifically during a mourning period. Meghan repeatedly ignored this rule, often choosing to wear black when she married into the family. Even then, the Sun was full of praise, saying, "We're obsessed with Meghan's chic style." They attributed these choices to her humility. The point is that the British press were giving Meghan space to adjust to the way things are done in the UK, and specifically in the royal family, and were willing to defend her against criticisms. It's clear, however, that Meghan doesn't see it that way, and there's a reason for that.
The UK media, I truly believe, wanted my mom's side of my family to be the ones that all this drama could be stirred up with.
It's telling that the producers of the documentary didn't include the actual headline of this article. But I found the original, and the reason they excluded it is because it was a glowing article. Yes, they called one side of the family dirt poor, but if that was in fact the case, I don't see why speaking the truth should be considered racist. The article shared the intricate details of Meghan Markle's ancestors and how they rose out of slavery and poverty. Here was the conclusion of the article. By any measure, it is is a rich and interesting mix, quite as compelling in a different way from the marriage, remarriage, and intermarriage of royal princes and princesses, which has dominated the British royal family tree for 1,000 years. Miss Markle, possibly the future Duchess of Sussex, need have no worries about living up to the ancient blue blood line of the Windsors. The Mirror reported on Meghan's family tree as well, informing its viewers that Meghan Markle is the distant cousin of Churchill and Shakespeare. The Daily Mail had an article titled "Pioneering Black Professionals, Civil War Soldiers, and Immigrants from Prince Harry's England Meet Meghan Markle's Ancestors as Daily Mail TV reveals her extraordinary roots." And yet, none of these positive headlines were shared during the documentary. Instead, here's what we were told.
We were playing whack-a-mole every day. It was like, wait, another one popped up. Wait, stop, another story popped. Constant. They were going through the woodwork and pulling out people to create and plant the most salacious stories that they could.
Let's start with this one, because the cropping of the story is very telling. When you look up the original story, you see that it's the National Enquirer, which is not part of the British press, but an American tabloid. The National Enquirer also has plenty negative stories about King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales as well. Back to the documentary, because the next headline was by The Sun, reading Meghan Markle is related to Jack the Ripper serial killer suspect H.H. Holmes, who killed victims in Factory of Death Hotel. Well, I wouldn't really call this bullying, it's just a sensationalized story. As anyone even remotely famous ought to know, fame is a double-edged sword, and you have to take the good with the bad. Meghan, during the documentary and Oprah interview, drew comparisons with Catherine, and how the negative press she received was incomparable to Meghan's harrowing experience.
If they can compare what the experience that I went through was similar to what has been shared with us, Kate was called Waity Katie, waiting to marry William. While I imagine that was really hard, and I can't picture what that felt like, this is not the same. And if a member of his family will comfortably say, we've all had to deal with things that are rude and racist are not the same. And equally, you've also had a press team that goes on the record to defend you, especially when they know something's not true. And that didn't happen for us.
I don't think this is fair, since early on, Catherine was so intensely hounded by the press in ways that were reminiscent of Diana's experience, all while she was young, had no previous experience managing the spotlight, and didn't have any security. Catherine was raked over the coals by the media, her family tree picked apart, her privacy invaded, and all while being referred to by a cruel nickname. Catherine bore the onslaught in silence, I'm sure relying on the very same advice that the family and the staff had given Meghan as well.
It will pass. It will get better. It's just what they do right at the very beginning.
That's exactly what happened for Catherine, and the press has since fawned over her, with the odd negative headlines here and there. But that changed recently, when her privacy was invaded as someone attempted to access her medical records, followed by a pile-on by the media and social media demanding details of the health issues she was facing. An edited family photo added fuel to the fire, with people turning against her even more. Soon after, there was a mass obsession of "Where's Kate?" and ridiculous speculations about body doubles and all sorts of strange conspiracies. While this circus was raging, Catherine was recovering from major surgery, and as we now know, beginning cancer treatment. The situation got so bad that she had to finally reveal her diagnosis, something I truly believe she was forced into to stem the fervor. But Meghan doesn't really like to give Catherine's negative experience with the press any weight, because in her mind, she has to find a way to top everyone in her victim narrative, and the leaning on racism is used as a silver bullet. The second the race card is flashed, everyone has to back off and validate the feelings of the supposed victim of the racism. There is no room to argue, not about details, facts, or even intent. We have to just fall in line and accept that the accusations of racism, or worse yet, unconscious bias, are the absolute, unquestionable truth. And honestly, I'm sick of this game. Racism is a serious accusation, and often people throw it around thoughtlessly because it immediately puts them in a position of power over the others. This is exactly what Meghan Markle is doing, because the racism card is used particularly by her to distract from the real reason the British and the world media started to report on negative stories about her. As I have shown, for the first 2 years of her relationship with Prince Harry, Meghan did benefit from positive coverage by the British press. This did start to change a few months after the wedding. Here's why, according to Harry and Meghan.
But it really changed after the Australia tour, after our South Pacific tour.
That's when we announced we were pregnant with Archie. That was our first tour.
But it was also the first time that the family got to see how incredible she is at the job. And that brought back memories. To see to see how effortless it was for Meghan to come into the family so quickly in Australia and across New Zealand, Fiji and Tonga, and just be able to connect with people. It's an event where every single member of the family, senior members of the family had been, including the Queen. And on the front page of the Telegraph, Meghan.
I went, oh my God.
She was like, but it's not my fault. And I said, I know. And my mum felt the same way.
If this were true, and that's a big if, the same sort of betrayal would be happening to Catherine now. Catherine is far more popular than Prince William. She's far more popular than King Charles and Queen Camilla, and yet no one in the family seems to mind. Instead, they all get along and get on with the job at hand. And while Meghan enjoyed more attention and was favored by the press, this was simply because she was the newest member on the block. This favor started to eventually fade. Meghan wishes she was as well liked as they describe in the documentary.
It's not the pilot, but whoever's sort of overseeing the crew. And he came and he knelt next to my seat and he took his hat off. And I just remember looking at him, he goes, "We appreciate everything you did for our country."
She wishes she had the global impact and universal love that the previous and current Princess of Wales had and have. She wishes that it was jealousy that led to the press turning against her, because it's a far better answer than the reality that the press turned against her because they started to see the truth of her character. In my life, I have observed that narcissists have the shelf life of about 2 years. They have a 2-year grace period where people buy the vision the narcissist is selling, buy the lies, buy the manufactured personality before the cracks begin to form and reality comes crashing down. That is exactly what happened with the British press. In the beginning, they were glowing and honestly went easy on her, afraid they would be accused of racism. They were easier on her than they were on Catherine, Sarah Ferguson, and Diana. The British press gave Meghan Markle leniency and made excuses when she went against royal protocol, understanding that it came down to cultural differences. But over time, the press started to notice that it wasn't that Meghan didn't know the rules, but that she had no intention of following them, because she had no intention of fitting in and playing ball. They started to notice that maybe she wasn't as humble as they thought she was, but that she was intent on getting all the attention, and that there wasn't much she wasn't willing to do in order to get it. They noticed strange behaviors like Meghan pushing ahead of Prince Harry or pushing people out of her way. When the press initially captured these instances, they would often cut it out of the video footage. But they clearly saw her behavior in person during the engagements. They noticed strange code flicking to get perfect shots of her baby bump or her rude behavior to staff. They heard rumors that she was mistreating people behind the scenes, which was leading to fights with the rest of the royal family. And of course, they witnessed the unprecedented staff departures. The press found it odd that she had cut her entire family off, and only one person, her mother, was invited to her wedding. They found it stranger still that she had invited so many celebrities to her wedding, many of whom she had never even met before, while her family and many of Prince Harry's cousins had received no invitation. They noticed strange behavior around the birth of Archie, where Harry and Meghan flouted royal traditions set in place and followed for ages to preserve the sanctity of the line of succession. They noticed that Prince Harry was no longer jovial with them, no longer wishing them well and buying them drinks at the pub, but instead sullen, resentful, and angry. It wasn't long before the British press was able to connect the dots, that Meghan Markle wasn't the down-to-earth humanitarian princess that they had hoped she would be, but rather an astute hustler that would stop at nothing to get attention, sympathy, money, and control. And that's when more and more of the negative headlines began to emerge. The press never treated Catherine like this because Catherine has never behaved in a way for them to criticize. She's never bullied staff, done attention-seeking stunts, competed with her own family, and she has especially never complained about the family. Instead, she has adopted the traditions of the family, embraced her role, and done as the family and people have expected of her, and done it well, might I add. So on the rare occasions that she has broken protocol, the press have been forgiving, just like they had been with Meghan. When it comes to the difference in headlines regarding Catherine touching her bump versus Meghan doing the same, let's just look at these stories side by side, and what do you notice? In Catherine's instance, you can only find a handful of photos of her touching her stomach during the 3 extremely public pregnancies, while there are endless photos of Meghan clutching her bump and endless footage of her trying to draw more attention to it, all during her single public pregnancy. There is nothing wrong with occasionally touching your baby bump, but there is something really odd about wearing body-conforming dresses, constantly touching your stomach, and then purposefully flicking your coat to draw more attention to it? It's vain.
What does it have to do with pride or vanity?
It's attention-seeking. It's weird. And if Catherine had behaved in the same way, she would have received the same criticism, if not more, because I strongly believe that the British press were very careful how they reported on Meghan Markle because she was mixed race and they knew they would be accused of racism. So despite their more than fair treatment, why does Meghan Markle want us to believe that she was the victim of bullying at their hands? It's because she couldn't control them. She couldn't stop them from uncovering the truth of her behavior, something she could do easily when she moved to America. In America, for some years now, she has enjoyed positive press, using some publications like People magazine almost like a mouthpiece. Meghan and Harry have repeatedly said that the palace would never defend them when it came to stopping the negative headlines, but the royal family doesn't have control over the press, and that's the problem. Meghan Markle wanted control. It's true that narcissists often accuse other people of the very sins that they themselves commit, and ultimately, wanting to be looked at as the most bullied person in the world is all to hide the actual truth that the British media and YouTube commentators have been saying for many years, that it's Meghan Markle who is the biggest bully. Unfortunately for Meghan, the American press has now woken up to that reality too. I guess there's nowhere to hide now. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Fume for sponsoring this video. I'll see you next time.